And so when you're talking about this, it is a generalization, and there's significant differences within the society.
Yeah, so thanks for that. This is, I was generalizing, Israeli society is, those of you who took the course with me in the past, and we'll talk about this in the present courses, know Israeli society is actually, as the Israeli president said it a few months ago, it's actually more and more divided into tribes than one society. When I'm generalizing like this, I'm, for example, not mentioning that 20% of the Israeli population are Arab Palestinian Israeli citizens who don't who don't get enlisted to the military, who don't believe that the military is the most is the institute that you should really look up to, because they don't believe in what it does. There are another 10 to 15% of Israeli ultra-Orthodox Haredi Jews who don't get enlisted to the military, who think differently about it. So you're very right. What I was saying is generally about Israeli society. Part of the reason that my research is from newspapers is because the difficulty of talking about Israeli society today. So the best you can do is look at newspapers which also don't represent Israeli society, but at least they are, you know, a kind of something that...
Which papers did you use?
Haaretz and Yediot.
Haaretz and?
Yediot.
Yediot.
Yediot is, both of them are more than 50% of the reading. Again, I took, maybe it's not interesting, I took these two very different newspapers because I see something that's common to both of them, although they're very different. That's why I thought it was interesting. Yeah.
So we've been looking at this from the perspective of a country, Israel, the United States, and so on. Could you, it's a big question, so, but could you flip this over and look at it from the point of view of a terrorist? How do they look at asymmetrical wars? And obviously it's a big question, so maybe you could just explore a little bit.
I think there's a difference. There's a difference between the wars that Israel is involved in and the wars that the U.S. is involved in these asymmetric or new wars. Because the wars that Israel is involved in with the Palestinians, again, the wars in Lebanon are a bit different, are wars by the Palestinian definition is that they're fighting for their independence. So I don't think it is fair, if we want to approach it from their perspective, it's not fair to call, they do not think of themselves as terrorists. But I don't know even if Al-Qaeda or ISIS think of themselves as terrorists. But if you ask the Palestinians, they're fighting for their independence and they want to take Israel out of the West Bank and Gaza, so that would be their cause. But why do I still think that that this could be the terms? Because when we talk about Hamas and not another PLO, they still do not recognize Israel. So it's not as if, you know, the end of the war will be walking out of the West Bank and then the war will be over. That's not how they say it. So that is why. But I think that if we try to understand how the smaller groups, the terrorist groups, think of these new wars, their ability to hurt the big powers are bigger than they were before, and they will tell you that they have the cause. What I say is trying to, you know, to understand this phenomenon of new wars does not mean that each side, if you ask them, they will tell you that they have goals and this is the goals that they want to achieve. Israel can tell you what the goals of this war is, and Hamas can tell you. But I think if you look at the overall picture, they don't actually have that. They don't have concrete things, that measurement that they want to achieve. Other questions? Yeah.
You know, I was just going to mention that I can recall the Six-Day War. I can recall being on the playground with Jewish children and Jewish families, and this folklore about the preservation of Jewish lives, and that was a sense of success. That was a success, a sense of winning when there were preservation of Jewish lives. Now we have these new wars, and they're here, there, and they're sort of scattered, and you have terrorist groups and conflict with the Palestinians. Is that sense of success still being measured or calculated or talked about? How many Jewish lives are being preserved? How many
The Six-Day War, those of you who don't remember, don't recall, the Six-Day War, the big success was not preserving Jewish lives. It was taking over a lot of land. It was about, this was not Israel intention. The Israeli narrative is we shot the first shot, but we were aimed and they wanted to destroy us. It was protecting ourselves and then taking over land. There's no question, if we talk about winning or losing a war, there was no question, not by the Israeli side or the Arab side, who won the war. Israel won it by huge victory. So that was the sense then. Yeah.
Well, having lived in Israel during this war and being very conscious of what was going on because I was doing research, I mean, there was the general impression, and here I'm generalizing again, as you were doing, but for sake of time, that the combined armies were saying, we're going to wipe the Jews out, we're going to drive them into the sea, and so forth. So there was certainly the perception at that time of the need for survival. Having been so successful, yes, indeed, the occupation of land became a consequence of the war. But I don't think there were many Israelis at the time who were actually thinking about, you know, conquering territory.
I agree. 48 till 73, every war that Israel had was a war that Israel thought it defends its actual survival. What they want is for Israel not to exist. These were the big wars. These were the old wars. Israel was fighting for its existence, and when that happens, you do everything you can. I agree with that. What changed is from the 1980s, the First Lebanon War and onwards, where that is completely different. Now the students are getting tired. So go watch the basketball game, and thanks for coming.